The first rays of dawn crept through the worn curtains of a small, cramped apartment in the outskirts of New York City. Olivia Martinez, a petite woman with kind eyes and calloused hands, stirred from her fitful sleep. As she rose from her threadbare couch, her gaze fell upon the framed photo of her late parents, a bittersweet reminder of the life she once had. Olivia's day began like any other: a quick shower in the leaky bathroom, a hurried breakfast of day-old bread, and a race to catch the early bus to the affluent suburbs of Westchester County. As the city's concrete jungle gave way to manicured lawns and towering mansions, Olivia's thoughts drifted to her job as a maid for the prestigious Blackwood family. The Blackwood estate loomed before her, a monument to wealth and privilege. Olivia squared her shoulders and entered through the service entrance, donning her uniform with practiced efficiency. The house was already abuzz with activity as she began her duties, dusting priceless antiques and polishing silverware worth more than her yearly salary. "Olivia," a shrill voice cut through the air. Victoria Blackwood, the lady of the house, strode into the room, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. "I hope you remember we're hosting a charity gala tonight. Everything must be spotless." "Yes, Mrs. Blackwood," Olivia replied softly, her head bowed. "I'll make sure everything is perfect." As Victoria swept out of the room, Olivia caught a glimpse of herself in a gilded mirror. The contrast between her simple uniform and the opulent surroundings couldn't have been starker. Yet, there was a quiet dignity in her bearing, a strength that spoke of dreams deferred but not forgotten. The day progressed in a flurry of activity. Olivia moved from room to room, her movements efficient and unobtrusive. She overheard snippets of conversation: the Blackwood's daughter, Amelia, complaining about her latest shopping spree, and their son, Ethan, arguing with his father about his future in the family business. As evening approached, the Blackwood household transformed. Glittering decorations adorned every surface, and the air was heavy with the scent of expensive perfumes. Olivia worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring every detail was perfect for the arriving guests. It was during a brief moment of respite that Olivia's life took an unexpected turn. As she was arranging flowers in the grand foyer, she overheard a heated conversation from Mr. Blackwood's study. "The numbers don't add up, Richard," a gruff voice insisted. "Someone's been skimming from the charity funds." Olivia's heart raced. She knew she shouldn't be listening, but the gravity of the accusation rooted her to the spot. "Impossible," Mr. Blackwood replied, his voice tight with anger. "I oversee every transaction myself." "Well, someone's got sticky fingers," the other man continued. "And if we don't find out who, it could ruin everything we've built." The conversation was cut short by the arrival of the first guests. Olivia hurried away, her mind reeling from what she had just heard. Little did she know, this overheard conversation would soon plunge her into a web of deceit and betrayal that would test her very soul. As the gala got underway, Olivia found herself constantly on the move, refilling champagne flutes and clearing away empty plates. The Blackwoods moved through the crowd with practiced ease, all smiles and charm as they mingled with New York's elite. It was during one of her trips to the kitchen that Olivia encountered Ethan Blackwood, the family's eldest son. Unlike his parents and sister, Ethan had always treated the staff with kindness and respect. "Olivia," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Can I speak with you for a moment?" Surprised, Olivia nodded and followed him to a quiet corner of the kitchen. Ethan's usually confident demeanor was replaced by obvious distress. "I need your help," he began, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. I think someone in the family is involved in something illegal. I've seen some strange transactions, heard some worrying conversations. I don't know who to trust." Olivia's mind raced back to the conversation she had overheard earlier. Could there be a connection? "Mr. Ethan, I'm not sure how I can help," she replied cautiously. Ethan's eyes bore into hers, filled with a desperation that made her heart ache. "You see everything in this house, Olivia. You're invisible to them, but you're there. If anyone can help me figure out what's going on, it's you." Before Olivia could respond, Victoria Blackwood's voice rang out from the ballroom. "Ethan! Where are you? The Vanderbilts want to discuss your father's latest project." With a final, pleading look at Olivia, Ethan hurried away, leaving her standing alone in the kitchen, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and concern. As the night wore on, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the precipice of something much larger than herself. The glittering gala continued around her, a facade of wealth and perfection that seemed to be cracking at the seams. It was well past midnight when the last guest departed. Olivia worked alongside the other staff members to restore the mansion to its usual immaculate state. As she was polishing a set of crystal glasses in the now empty ballroom, she noticed something glinting beneath one of the tables. Curious, she bent down to investigate. Her heart nearly stopped when she realized what it was: a small USB drive, innocuous in appearance but heavy with potential secrets. Without thinking, she slipped it into her pocket, her mind racing with possibilities. As dawn broke over the Blackwood estate, Olivia finally made her way home, exhausted but unable to sleep. The USB drive felt like it was burning a hole in her pocket. She knew that its contents could change everything, for the Blackwoods, for herself, and perhaps for many others. Sitting on her worn couch, Olivia turned the drive over in her hands. She was just a maid, a simple woman trying to make an honest living. But fate had thrust her into the center of what could be a scandalous conspiracy. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through her shabby curtains, Olivia made a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. With trembling hands, she reached for her old laptop. Whatever secrets this drive held, she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Little did Olivia know, her quest for truth would soon plunge her into a world of betrayal, false accusations, and unexpected alliances. The humble maid was about to embark on a journey that would test her integrity, challenge her beliefs, and ultimately, reveal the strength of her character in ways she never imagined possible. As she inserted the USB drive into her laptop, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was opening Pandora's box. The screen flickered to life, and with it, the first chapter of Olivia's extraordinary journey began to unfold. The contents of the USB drive were a labyrinth of spreadsheets and documents, most of which were beyond Olivia's comprehension. However, one file caught her eye, a list of transactions with astronomical sums, far exceeding anything she had ever seen in her life. As she scrolled through the list, a familiar name jumped out at her: Blackwood Foundation. The charitable organization run by the family she worked for was listed multiple times, always in connection with large, unexplained transfers of money. Olivia's heart raced. Was this evidence of the embezzlement she had overheard Mr. Blackwood discussing? And if so, who was responsible? The weight of this knowledge pressed down on her, a burden she never asked to bear. For days, Olivia went about her duties at the Blackwood mansion with a heavy heart and a distracted mind. Every interaction, every overheard conversation now carried the potential for hidden meanings and sinister undertones. It was during this time that she began to notice subtle changes in the family dynamics. Victoria Blackwood seemed more tense than usual, snapping at the staff for the slightest infractions. Richard Blackwood spent long hours locked in his study, emerging only for meals, his face haggard and drawn. Amelia, the youngest Blackwood, continued her carefree lifestyle, seemingly oblivious to the tension around her. But it was Ethan who concerned Olivia the most. The young man who had confided in her at the gala now avoided her gaze, his usual friendly demeanor replaced by a nervous, almost guilty air. As Olivia dusted the family portraits in the main hall one afternoon, she overheard a heated argument between Ethan and his father. "You need to be more careful," Richard hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. If anyone finds out dash. Finds out what, Dad? Ethan shot back, his voice trembling with emotion. That our whole charitable foundation is built on lies? The sound of approaching footsteps cut the conversation short, and Olivia quickly busied herself with her dusting. Her mind, however, was reeling. The Blackwood's perfect facade was crumbling, and she found herself in possession of information that could bring it all crashing down. That evening, as Olivia prepared to leave for the day, she was summoned to Victoria Blackwood's private sitting room. Her heart pounding, she knocked softly on the ornate door. "Enter," came Victoria's imperious voice. Olivia stepped into the room, immediately feeling out of place amidst the luxury. Victoria sat perched on a velvet chaise lounge, her face a mask of cold fury. "Olivia," she began, her voice dripping with disdain, "it has come to my attention that several valuable items have gone missing from the house recently. A diamond bracelet, to be precise." Olivia's blood ran cold. "Mrs. Blackwood, I dash." "Save your excuses," Victoria cut her off. "You're the only one with access to all the rooms. Who else could it be?" "But I would never dash," Olivia started, her voice choked with emotion. "You're fired," Victoria declared, her eyes flashing. "Leave immediately, and don't even think about using us as a reference." Stunned and heartbroken, Olivia found herself standing outside the Blackwood mansion, her meager possessions stuffed into a bag. Tears streamed down her face as the reality of her situation sank in. She had lost her job, her reputation, and any hope of uncovering the truth about the Blackwood Foundation. As she waited for the bus that would take her back to her tiny apartment, Olivia's mind raced. She knew she was innocent, but who would believe the word of a simple maid against the powerful Blackwood family? The weight of the USB drive in her bag seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. Little did Olivia know, her journey was far from over. The false accusation that had cost her job was just the beginning. In the days to come, she would find unlikely allies, face unimaginable challenges, and ultimately reveal a truth that would shake the Blackwood family and the entire city to its very core. As the bus pulled away from the curb, carrying a dejected Olivia back to her humble abode, the stage was set for a dramatic tale of redemption, justice, and the triumph of the human spirit. The simple maid, wrongly accused and cast aside, was about to embark on a path that would not only clear her name but also expose the real culprits behind the Blackwood family's web of lies and deceit. The journey ahead would test Olivia's resilience, challenge her beliefs, and push her to limits she never knew she possessed. But with unwavering determination and an unshakable moral compass, Olivia was poised to become the unlikely hero in a story that would captivate and inspire all who witnessed it. As night fell over New York City, Olivia sat in her dimly lit apartment, her world turned upside down. The events of the day played on repeat in her mind, the accusation, the dismissal, the look of contempt in Victoria Blackwood's eyes. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the USB drive, the only tangible evidence of the secrets she had stumbled upon. A soft knock on her door startled her out of her anguished reverie. Wiping her eyes, Olivia approached the door cautiously. Who could be visiting her at this hour? She opened the door to find Ethan Blackwood standing in the hallway, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled, his eyes wild with worry. "Olivia," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know you didn't steal anything. I'm here to help." Stunned, Olivia stepped aside to let him in. As Ethan entered her modest apartment, the contrast between his world and hers had never been more apparent. Yet, in that moment, they were united by a common purpose, uncovering the truth. "My mother, she's not thinking clearly," Ethan began, pacing the small living room. "There's so much you don't know, so much I've only recently discovered myself." Olivia listened intently as Ethan unraveled a tale of greed, manipulation, and betrayal that stretched back years. The Blackwood Foundation, it seemed, was not the bastion of philanthropy it appeared to be. My father, Ethan explained, his voice heavy with shame. He's been using the foundation to launder money for years. Dirty money from all sorts of illegal operations. And my mother, she's been helping him cover it up. The revelation hit Olivia like a physical blow. She thought of all the charity galas, all the public accolades the Blackwoods had received for their supposed generosity. It had all been a lie. But why frame me? Olivia asked, her voice trembling. Ethan's face crumpled with guilt. They're scared, Olivia. They know someone's onto them. The missing bracelet, it's just a diversion. They're trying to create chaos, throw suspicion onto others while they cover their tracks. As the night wore on, Olivia and Ethan formulated a plan. With the information on the USB drive and Ethan's insider knowledge, they had the power to expose the Blackwoods' corruption. But it wouldn't be easy. They were up against a powerful family with countless resources at their disposal. We need help, Olivia said, her mind racing. Someone who can't be bought, someone with the authority to bring your parents to justice. Ethan nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. I know just the person. An old friend from college who now works for the FBI. If anyone can help us, it's her. As dawn broke over the city, Olivia and Ethan set their plan in motion. They would meet with Ethan's FBI contact, present their evidence, and hope for the best. But even as they prepared to leave, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that they were embarking on a dangerous path. The streets were just coming to life as Olivia and Ethan made their way to a nondescript cafe in a quiet part of town. Inside, a woman with sharp eyes and an air of authority was waiting for them. Agent Sarah Thompson, she introduced herself, her handshake firm. Ethan tells me you have quite a story to share. Over the next hour, Olivia and Ethan laid out everything they knew, the suspicious transactions, the overheard conversations, the sudden firing. Agent Thompson listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each passing minute. This is big, she said finally, leaning back in her chair. If what you're saying is true, we're looking at a massive case of fraud and money laundering. But we'll need more than just circumstantial evidence to bring down someone as influential as the Blackwoods. Olivia's heart sank. After everything, would justice still elude them? But Agent Thompson wasn't finished. That's where you come in, Olivia. We need someone on the inside, someone who can gather concrete evidence without raising suspicion. Ethan's eyes widened in understanding. You want Olivia to go back to work for my family? The agent nodded. Exactly. But this time, she'll be working for us too. Olivia felt a mix of fear and determination wash over her. The idea of returning to the Blackwood mansion, this time as an undercover agent, was both thrilling and terrifying. I'll do it, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. But how can we convince the Blackwoods to rehire me? Agent Thompson smiled, a glint of admiration in her eyes. Leave that to me. We'll create a story that'll make them think they need you back. As they left the cafe, Olivia's mind was reeling. In just a few short days, her life had transformed from that of a simple maid to a key player in a high-stakes FBI investigation. The weight of the responsibility was immense, but so was her determination to see justice served. The next morning, Victoria Blackwood received an unexpected phone call. The voice on the other end belonged to a prominent socialite, in reality, an FBI agent, who expressed deep disappointment in hearing about Olivia's dismissal. My dear Victoria, the voice purred, I simply must tell you what a treasure that Olivia is. When she worked for my cousin in Boston, she was an absolute gem. Discreet, hardworking, and most importantly, loyal to a fault. Are you quite sure there hasn't been some misunderstanding? Victoria's interest was piqued. If Olivia had connections to the upper echelons of society, perhaps she had been too hasty in her judgment. After all, finding good help was so difficult these days. Perhaps I was a bit impulsive, Victoria admitted reluctantly. Do you think she'd consider coming back? The plan was set in motion. Later that day, Olivia received a call from Mrs. Blackwood herself, offering her job back with a raise and a fumbling apology about the unfortunate misunderstanding. With her heart pounding, Olivia accepted the offer, her voice carefully modulated to sound grateful and slightly overwhelmed. As she hung up the phone, she caught her reflection in the mirror. The face that looked back at her was no longer just Olivia the maid, but Olivia the undercover agent, ready to unravel the Blackwood's web of deceit. The following Monday, Olivia returned to the Blackwood mansion. As she walked through the grand entrance, she felt the weight of her secret mission pressing down on her. Every interaction, every overheard conversation, could potentially be crucial evidence. Victoria Blackwood greeted her with a forced smile. "Welcome back, Olivia. I trust we can put that nasty business behind us and start afresh?" "Of course, Mrs. Blackwood," Olivia replied, lowering her eyes in a show of deference. "I'm just grateful for the opportunity to return." As Olivia settled back into her duties, she began to notice things she had overlooked before. The hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when she entered a room, the late-night meetings in Mr. Blackwood's study, the constant stream of couriers delivering unmarked packages. She also became acutely aware of the family dynamics. Richard Blackwood seemed more stressed than ever, often snapping at his wife and children over the smallest matters. Victoria threw herself into planning lavish charity events, as if trying to maintain their philanthropic image. Amelia, oblivious as ever, continued her carefree lifestyle, while Ethan walked a fine line between playing the dutiful son and secretly aiding Olivia's investigation. One evening, as Olivia was dusting the library, she overheard a heated argument between Richard and Victoria. "We need to move the money now, Richard," Victoria hissed. "The auditors are getting too close. If we don't act fast, everything we've built will come crashing down." "Keep your voice down," Richard replied, his tone sharp with fear. "We can't risk anyone overhearing. I'll make the arrangements tonight." Olivia's heart raced as she quietly slipped out of the room. She had to inform Agent Thompson immediately. Using the secure communication device she'd been given, Olivia sent an encrypted message detailing what she'd overheard. Days turned into weeks, and Olivia continued her delicate balancing act. By day, she was the perfect maid, efficient, discreet, and seemingly oblivious to the undercurrents of tension in the household. By night, she meticulously documented every suspicious activity, slowly building a case against the Blackwoods. Her friendship with Ethan deepened during this time. They would steal moments to talk, ostensibly about household matters, but in reality, updating each other on the progress of the investigation. Ethan's guilt over his family's actions was palpable, but so was his determination to make things right. As Olivia gained the family's trust, she was given more responsibilities, including managing some of the household accounts. This proved to be a goldmine of information. Hidden within the mundane expenses were patterns of transactions that, to the trained eye, clearly indicated money laundering. But just as Olivia felt she was getting close to gathering enough evidence, disaster struck. It was a warm summer evening, and the Blackwoods were hosting another of their charity galas. The mansion was filled with New York's elite, all dressed in their finest, sipping champagne and pretending to care about the cause du jour. Olivia was run off her feet, ensuring everything ran smoothly behind the scenes. As she was replenishing the hors d'oeuvres, she noticed Ethan in deep conversation with a striking woman she didn't recognize. The woman seemed agitated, her voice rising just enough for Olivia to catch snippets of their conversation. "You promised me, Ethan," the woman hissed. "You said you'd take care of it. Do you have any idea how much trouble I could be in?" Ethan's face was a mask of concern. "Keep your voice down, Melissa. I told you, I'm working on it. Just give me a little more time. As Olivia watched, the woman, Melissa, stormed off, leaving Ethan looking troubled. Olivia's mind raced. Who was this woman? And what had Ethan promised her? Before she could ponder further, she felt a hand on her arm. She turned to find Victoria Blackwood, her face flushed with alcohol and barely concealed anger. Olivia, dear, Victoria said, her voice sickly sweet. Would you be a darling and fetch my special red box from my bedroom? I seem to have forgotten something rather important. Olivia nodded, her instincts on high alert. In all her time working for the Blackwoods, she had never been asked to enter Victoria's private bedroom. This could be the opportunity she'd been waiting for. As she climbed the grand staircase, Olivia's mind was racing. Should she take this chance to search for evidence? The risk was enormous, but so was the potential reward. Entering Victoria's opulent bedroom, Olivia quickly spotted the red box on the dressing table. But her attention was drawn to a slightly open drawer in the bedside table. Heart pounding, she glanced at the door before making a split-second decision. She pulled open the drawer and found a stack of documents. As she quickly leafed through them, her eyes widened. Here, in black and white, were records of massive transfers to offshore accounts, all under the guise of charitable donations. With shaking hands, Olivia used her hidden camera to quickly photograph the documents. Just as she was replacing them in the drawer, she heard footsteps approaching. Panic surged through her as she rushed to close the drawer and grab the red box. The door handle turned just as Olivia composed herself, the red box in her hands. It was Amelia, Victoria's daughter, looking slightly tipsy and giggling. Oops, sorry Olivia. Didn't know anyone was in here. Mommy dearest send you on another errand? Olivia forced a smile. Yes, Miss Amelia. Just fetching something for your mother. As she made her way back downstairs, Olivia's heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. She had the evidence she needed, but at what cost? If anyone had seen her. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Olivia went through the motions of her duties, all while feeling as if she was walking on a knife's edge. Every glance, every word from the Blackwoods made her wonder, did they suspect? As the last guests departed and the household settled into the quiet of the late night, Olivia finally had a moment to breathe. She slipped away to the servants' quarters, her hands shaking as she retrieved her secure communication device. Just as she was about to send a message to Agent Thompson, detailing her discovery, a sharp knock on her door made her jump. Olivia? It's Ethan. We need to talk. Now. The urgency in his voice sent a chill down her spine. Had she been discovered? Was her cover blown? With a deep breath, Olivia opened the door. Ethan's face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. We have a problem, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They know. Olivia felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Know what? She managed to ask, though she feared she already knew the answer. Everything, Ethan replied, running a hand through his disheveled hair. The investigation, your involvement, all of it. We need to get you out of here, now. As the gravity of the situation sank in, Olivia's mind raced. How had they been discovered? And more importantly, what would happen now? But the evidence, Olivia protested weakly. We can't leave without Dash. Ethan cut her off. There's no time. They're planning something, Olivia. Something big. And I'm afraid they're going to pin it all on you. The next few moments were a blur. Ethan helped Olivia gather her few belongings, all while explaining in hushed tones what he had overheard. They're going to frame you for a massive embezzlement, he said, his voice tight with urgency. They've created a paper trail, fake accounts in your name. By morning, you'll be the most wanted woman in New York." As they crept through the darkened halls of the mansion, every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Olivia's heart pounded in her ears, her palms slick with sweat as she clutched her small bag of possessions. They had almost reached the service entrance when a voice froze them in their tracks. "And where do you two think you're going?" They turned to find Richard Blackwood standing in the hallway, a sinister smile playing on his lips. Behind him stood Victoria, her face a mask of cold fury. "Did you really think you could outsmart us?" Victoria sneered. "You, a simple maid? And you, Ethan, our own son, betraying us?" Ethan stepped in front of Olivia protectively. "It's over, Dad. We know everything. The FBI dash." Richard's laugh cut him off. "The FBI? You think we haven't taken care of that? By morning, all evidence will point to you two as the masterminds behind this shocking embezzlement scandal. The faithful son and the trusted maid, conspiring to steal millions from a charitable foundation. The press will eat it up." Olivia felt the world closing in around her. Everything they had worked for, all the risks she had taken, was it all for nothing? But then, something in Olivia snapped. She thought of her parents, of the values they had instilled in her. She thought of all the people the Blackwoods had deceived over the years. And she knew she couldn't give up. "No," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "You're wrong, Mr. Blackwood. It's not over. Because the truth always comes out, no matter how deeply it's buried." For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Richard's face. But it was quickly replaced by a cold determination. "Take them," he commanded, and suddenly, two burly security guards appeared, grabbing Olivia and Ethan roughly. As they were dragged away, Olivia's mind raced. She had one last card to play, the hidden camera with the incriminating photos. If she could just get word to Agent Thompson. But for now, as she was locked in a small room in the basement of the Blackwood mansion, all Olivia could do was wait and hope. The night stretched on, each minute feeling like an eternity. Little did the Blackwoods know, Olivia's resilience was far from broken. In the darkness of her makeshift cell, a plan began to form. She might be down, but she was far from out. The simple maid who had been underestimated her entire life was about to show the Blackwoods and the world exactly what she was made of. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the small basement window, Olivia steeled herself for the fight ahead. She knew that somewhere out there, Agent Thompson would be realizing something had gone wrong. And Olivia was determined to hold on until help arrived. The sound of approaching footsteps made her heart race. As the door creaked open, Olivia straightened her back and lifted her chin. Whatever came next, she would face it with the quiet dignity and strength that had carried her through every hardship in her life. The figure that entered the room wasn't who she expected. It was Amelia, the Blackwoods' carefree daughter, looking uncharacteristically serious. "Olivia," she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "We don't have much time. I overheard everything last night. I had no idea what my parents were involved in. This isn't right." Hope surged in Olivia's chest. "Amelia, listen to me. There's evidence dash." "I know," Amelia cut her off, pressing a small object into Olivia's hand. "It was the hidden camera. I found this in your room. I don't know exactly what's on it, but I'm guessing it's important." Olivia could hardly believe it. The very person she had always dismissed as a vapid socialite was now potentially saving their entire investigation. "Thank you," Olivia breathed. "But Amelia, you need to be careful. Your parents are not the people I thought they were," Amelia finished, a mix of sadness and determination in her eyes. I've called the police. They're on their way. I don't know if it'll be enough, but... The sound of commotion upstairs interrupted her. Shouts and the sound of running feet echoed through the house. That'll be them, Amelia said. Good luck, Olivia. And... I'm sorry. For everything. As Amelia slipped out of the room, Olivia clutched the camera tightly. She could hear the chaos unfolding above, demanding voices, the sound of doors being forced open. Suddenly, her door burst open again. This time, it was Agent Thompson, flanked by several FBI agents. Olivia! Thank God, the agent exclaimed. Are you all right? Olivia nodded, relief washing over her. I have it, she said, holding up the camera. Everything we need. It's all here. As they made their way upstairs, Olivia saw the scene unfolding. Richard and Victoria Blackwood were being led away in handcuffs, their faces a mix of fury and disbelief. Ethan stood to one side, looking shaken but relieved, while Amelia was giving a statement to another agent. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. Olivia gave her statement, handed over the evidence, and watched as the Blackwood empire began to crumble around her. By afternoon, the story had broken. Every news channel was running the shocking headline, "Prestigious Blackwood family arrested in massive charity fraud scandal." As Olivia sat in the FBI office, sipping a much-needed cup of coffee, she could hardly believe how much had changed in just a few short weeks. From a simple maid to the key witness in one of the biggest fraud cases in recent history. Agent Thompson approached her, a smile on her face. You did it, Olivia. Your courage and determination brought down an entire criminal operation. We couldn't have done it without you. Olivia felt a warmth spread through her chest. For so long, she had been invisible, overlooked. But now, she had made a real difference. What happens now? She asked, suddenly realizing she was unemployed once again. Well, Agent Thompson replied, that's up to you. But I have a feeling your days of being just a maid are over. How would you feel about a job offer? As Olivia considered the agent's words, a mix of emotions washed over her. The idea of working for the FBI was both thrilling and intimidating. It was a far cry from the life she had known, but hadn't the past few weeks proven that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined? I'm honored, Olivia said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. But I think I need some time to process everything that's happened. Can I have a few days to think about it? Agent Thompson nodded understandingly. Of course, Olivia. Take all the time you need. You've been through a lot, and this is a big decision. Here's my card. Call me when you're ready to talk, whether it's about the job offer or anything else. As Olivia left the FBI office, she stepped out into a world that felt entirely new. The streets of New York City, once just the backdrop to her daily commute, now seemed full of possibilities. She was no longer just Olivia the maid, but Olivia the hero who had brought down a criminal empire. The next few days passed in a blur of media attention and legal proceedings. Olivia found herself thrust into the spotlight, her face splashed across newspapers and TV screens. Humble Maid unveils multi-million-dollar fraud, the headlines screamed. Reporters clamored for interviews, wanting to hear every detail of her incredible story. At first, the attention was overwhelming. Olivia, who had spent most of her life trying to blend into the background, now found herself at the center of a media frenzy. But as she shared her story, she began to realize the impact it was having. People from all walks of life reached out to her, inspired by her courage and integrity. Young women saw her as a role model, proof that one person, no matter how seemingly insignificant, could make a difference. Olivia's inbox was flooded with messages of support and admiration. One afternoon, as Olivia was trying to grab a quiet cup of coffee at a local cafe, a young waitress approached her table. "Excuse me," the girl said, her voice trembling slightly. "Are you Olivia? The one from the news?" Olivia nodded, bracing herself for another round of questions about the Blackwoods. But the waitress surprised her. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, her eyes shining with emotion. "Your story, it gave me courage. I've been dealing with some shady stuff at my second job, and I was too scared to speak up. But after seeing what you did, I reported it to the authorities yesterday." Olivia felt a lump form in her throat. "That's incredibly brave of you," she said, reaching out to squeeze the young woman's hand. "Never let anyone make you feel like your voice doesn't matter." As the waitress walked away with a spring in her step, Olivia realized something profound. Her actions hadn't just brought down the Blackwoods, they had created a ripple effect, inspiring others to stand up for what was right. This realization helped Olivia navigate the choppy waters of her newfound fame. She began to use her platform to speak out about workers' rights, the importance of ethical business practices, and the power of individual action. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings against the Blackwoods continued. Olivia found herself spending long hours with prosecutors, going over her testimony and the evidence she had gathered. It was draining work, forcing her to relive some of the most stressful moments of her life, but she was determined to see justice served. Throughout this time, Ethan Blackwood remained a steadfast ally. Despite the shame of his family's actions, he stood by Olivia, offering support and corroborating her testimony. Their shared experience had forged a bond between them, one that was growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, after a particularly grueling day in court, Ethan invited Olivia to dinner at a small, out-of-the-way restaurant. "I wanted to thank you," he said as they settled into their seats. "Not just for exposing the truth, but for believing in me. For giving me the courage to do the right thing." Olivia smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the cozy atmosphere of the restaurant. "You gave me courage too, Ethan. I couldn't have done any of this without you." As they talked, Olivia found herself opening up about her past, her humble beginnings, the loss of her parents, the struggles she had faced. Ethan listened intently, his eyes never leaving her face. "You're remarkable, Olivia," he said softly when she had finished. "I've never met anyone like you." The intensity of his gaze made Olivia's heart skip a beat. Was this just gratitude and admiration she was seeing, or was it something more? Before she could dwell on it further, Ethan's phone buzzed. His face fell as he read the message. "It's Amelia," he said, his voice tight with concern. "She's not coping well with everything that's happened. I should go check on her." Olivia nodded understandingly. Despite everything, Amelia was still Ethan's sister, and she had played a crucial role in bringing the truth to light. As they parted ways that night, Olivia felt a mix of emotions she couldn't quite untangle. Her life had changed so dramatically in such a short time, and she was still trying to find her footing in this new reality. The next morning, Olivia woke to find her phone buzzing with notifications. She had been so caught up in the legal proceedings and her own emotional journey that she had almost forgotten about the outside world. As she scrolled through the news, her heart sank. "Blackwood charity fraud, thousands left in the lurch," one headline read. Another proclaimed, "Local charities struggle in wake of Blackwood scandal." The articles detailed the far-reaching consequences of the Blackwoods' actions. Charitable organizations that had depended on the Blackwood Foundation's donations were now facing severe financial difficulties. Vital community programs were at risk of shutting down. Olivia felt a weight settle on her shoulders. Yes, she had exposed the truth, but at what cost? How many innocent people were suffering because of the Blackwoods' greed? She was still mulling over this when her phone rang. It was Agent Thompson. "Olivia," the agent said, her voice urgent. "I need you to come to the office right away. There's been a development in the case." Heart racing, Olivia rushed to the FBI office. As she was ushered into a conference room, she found Agent Thompson looking grave. "We've uncovered something disturbing," Agent Thompson began without preamble. "It seems the Blackwood's operation was even more extensive than we initially thought. We found links to several other high-profile families and corporations." Olivia listened in shock as Agent Thompson laid out the details. The Blackwoods hadn't been working alone. They were part of a vast network of fraud and corruption that stretched across the upper echelons of New York society. "We're on the verge of breaking open one of the biggest white-collar crime rings in the city's history," Agent Thompson concluded. "But we need your help, Olivia. You've proven yourself to be not just brave, but incredibly perceptive. We want you to work with us on this investigation." Olivia's mind reeled. This was far bigger than anything she had imagined. The implications were staggering. "What about the charities?" she asked, thinking of the news articles she had read that morning. "All those people who are suffering because of what the Blackwoods did." Agent Thompson's expression softened. "That's actually part of why we need you, Olivia. Your insight into the Blackwoods operation could help us recover more of the stolen funds. We might be able to help those charities after all." As Olivia considered the offer, she realized that this was her chance to truly make a difference. Not just in exposing the truth, but in helping to repair some of the damage that had been done. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm with resolve. "Where do we start?" The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Olivia threw herself into the investigation, working long hours alongside the FBI team. Her unique perspective proved invaluable, helping the agents connect dots they might have otherwise missed. As the investigation deepened, Olivia found herself delving into a world she had only glimpsed before. She pored over financial records, sat in on interviews with suspects, and helped piece together the complex web of deceit that had allowed this criminal enterprise to flourish for so long. It was challenging work, often leaving Olivia mentally and emotionally drained. But every time she felt like giving up, she thought of the people counting on her, the charities struggling to stay afloat, the communities at risk of losing vital services. One particularly late night at the office, as Olivia was sifting through a mountain of documents, she stumbled upon something that made her blood run cold. There, buried in a seemingly innocuous report, was a name she recognized: Melissa. Olivia's mind flashed back to the night of the gala, to the heated conversation she had overheard between Ethan and the mysterious woman. With trembling hands, she dug deeper, following the trail of breadcrumbs. What she uncovered left her reeling. Melissa wasn't just some random acquaintance of Ethan's. She was a key player in the larger conspiracy, with ties to several of the families under investigation. Olivia's heart raced as the implications sank in. Had Ethan known about this? Had his involvement in exposing his parents been just another layer of deception? She wanted desperately to believe in Ethan's innocence, to trust in the connection they had formed. But the evidence in front of her was damning. With a heavy heart, Olivia brought her findings to Agent Thompson. The agent listened gravely as Olivia laid out the connections she had uncovered. "This is significant, Olivia," Agent Thompson said when she had finished. "We'll need to bring Ethan in for questioning." The next day, as Olivia watched from behind a two-way mirror, Ethan was led into an interrogation room. He looked confused and frightened, a far cry from the confident young man she had come to know. As the questioning began, Olivia found herself holding her breath, silently willing Ethan to have an explanation for everything. "Mr. Blackwood," the interrogating agent began, "can you tell us about your relationship with Melissa Hartley?" Ethan's face paled. "Melissa? We dated briefly in college. But I haven't had any contact with her in years." "Why?" The agent slid a photograph across the table. It showed Ethan and Melissa in deep conversation at the charity gala, the very conversation Olivia had witnessed. "Would you like to revise your statement, Mr. Blackwood?" What followed was a grueling interrogation that lasted for hours. Olivia watched, her heart breaking, as Ethan's composure crumbled. He admitted to knowing about Melissa's illegal activities but insisted that he had been trying to gather evidence against her. "I wanted to bring her down along with my parents," Ethan said, his voice choked with emotion. "I thought I could handle it on my own. I was wrong. I should have told you everything from the beginning." As Ethan was led away, Olivia felt as though her world had been turned upside down once again. The man she had come to trust, to care for deeply, had been keeping secrets of his own. That night, as Olivia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she found herself questioning everything. How could she have been so blind? Had her feelings for Ethan clouded her judgment? But even as doubt and hurt swirled within her, another part of Olivia, the part that had always believed in seeing the best in people, whispered that there might be more to the story. Ethan had made mistakes, yes, but hadn't his actions ultimately helped bring the truth to light? The next morning, Olivia arrived at the FBI office with dark circles under her eyes but a renewed determination in her heart. As she settled into her desk, Agent Thompson approached her. "Olivia," the agent said, her voice gentle. "I know yesterday was tough. How are you holding up?" Olivia took a deep breath. "I'm okay," she said, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. "What's our next move?" Agent Thompson smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. "That's what I like about you, Olivia. Always focused on the task at hand. Well, we've got a new lead. One of the families implicated in the investigation is hosting a charity event this weekend. We think it might be a cover for a major transaction." As Agent Thompson laid out the details of the operation, Olivia felt a familiar mix of excitement and trepidation. This was her chance to prove herself, to show that her involvement in the case was about more than just her connection to the Blackwoods. "We want you to attend the event," Agent Thompson concluded. "Your face isn't as well known in these circles as ours are. You'll be our eyes and ears on the inside." Olivia nodded, her mind already racing with the possibilities and potential risks. "I'll do it," she said. "But I have one condition." Agent Thompson raised an eyebrow. "Oh." "I want to talk to Ethan before the operation," Olivia said, surprising herself with her own boldness. "There are things I need to understand." After a moment's hesitation, Agent Thompson agreed. "All right, but be careful, Olivia. Remember, Ethan is still a suspect in an ongoing investigation." Later that day, Olivia found herself face to face with Ethan in a small, stark interview room. He looked tired and disheveled, a shadow of his former self. "Olivia," he breathed, relief evident in his voice. "I was afraid you wouldn't want to see me." "I almost didn't," Olivia admitted, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Ethan, I need to know the truth. All of it. No more secrets." And so, over the next hour, Ethan laid bare the full story of his involvement with Melissa, his attempts to gather evidence against her, and his fear of coming clean to the FBI. "I was a coward," he concluded, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I thought I could handle everything on my own, protect everyone I cared about. Instead, I just made everything worse." As Olivia listened, she felt the tight knot of hurt and betrayal in her chest begin to loosen. Ethan had made mistakes, grievous ones, but his intentions had been good. And in the end, hadn't she too kept secrets in the name of a greater good? "Thank you for telling me the truth," Olivia said softly. "It doesn't erase what happened, but it helps." As she stood to leave, Ethan called out to her. "Olivia, wait." There's something else you should know about the charity event this weekend. Olivia's heart raced as Ethan shared what he knew, details that could prove crucial to the FBI's operation. As she relayed the information to Agent Thompson, Olivia felt a renewed sense of purpose. The pieces were falling into place, and she was at the center of it all. The night of the charity event arrived, and Olivia found herself stepping out of a sleek black car, dressed in an elegance she had only ever observed from afar. Her simple beauty, enhanced by a tasteful gown and subtle makeup, turned heads as she made her way into the opulent ballroom. As she mingled with New York's elite, Olivia's mind was sharp, cataloging every conversation, every subtle exchange. She was no longer the invisible maid, she was a key player in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Across the room, she spotted her target, Maxwell Thornton, the patriarch of one of the families implicated in the investigation. With a deep breath, Olivia made her approach, armed with the backstory Agent Thompson had crafted for her. "Mr. Thornton," she said, her voice smooth and confident. "I don't believe we've had the pleasure. I'm Olivia Reyes, representing the Sunnyvale Foundation." As she engaged Thornton in conversation, Olivia's keen eyes caught sight of a subtle exchange, a small, unmarked envelope passing from Thornton to another guest. Her heart raced. This could be the evidence they needed. But before she could make a move, a commotion near the entrance caught everyone's attention. Olivia turned, and her breath caught in her throat. There, being led into the ballroom in handcuffs, was Melissa Hartley. FBI agents swarmed the room, their voices rising above the shocked murmurs of the guests. "FBI! Everyone remain calm and stay where you are." Olivia's mind raced. This wasn't part of the plan. She locked eyes with Agent Thompson across the room, who gave her a subtle nod. The message was clear: stay in character, keep gathering information. As chaos erupted around her, Olivia noticed Maxwell Thornton trying to slip away unnoticed. Without hesitation, she followed him, her heart pounding in her ears. Thornton ducked into a secluded alcove, pulling out his phone with shaking hands. Olivia positioned herself nearby, pretending to be a frightened guest seeking shelter from the commotion. "It's all falling apart," Thornton hissed into his phone. "Melissa's been arrested. We need to move everything now. Use the offshore accounts we set up last month." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. This was it, the final piece of evidence they needed to bring down the entire network. Just then, Thornton's eyes locked onto hers. Recognition flashed across his face, followed quickly by anger and fear. "You," he snarled, lunging towards her. Olivia's training kicked in. She dodged Thornton's grasp, using his momentum against him to send him stumbling into a nearby table. As he crashed to the floor, the contents of his pockets spilled out, including the unmarked envelope she had seen him receive earlier. Before Thornton could recover, FBI agents were on the scene, subduing him and securing the evidence. Agent Thompson appeared at Olivia's side, a mix of concern and pride on her face. "Are you all right?" Olivia nodded, her heart still racing. "I'm fine. Did you get what you needed?" "Thanks to you, we did," Agent Thompson confirmed. Thornton's phone call, combined with the documents in that envelope, should be enough to bring down the entire network. As the dust settled and the suspects were led away, Olivia found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. She gave her statement to the FBI, detailing everything she had seen and heard. Her quick thinking and bravery were lauded by the entire team. In the days that followed, the true scope of the operation became clear. The charity event bust had been the final piece in a complex puzzle, exposing a network of fraud and corruption that stretched across multiple states and even overseas. Olivia watched in awe as the news broke, headline after headline detailing the arrests of some of New York's most prominent figures. The Blackwood case, which had once seemed so massive, was now just one part of a much larger story. Through it all, Olivia found herself thrust into the spotlight once again. This time, however, she was ready for it. She used her platform to speak out about corporate responsibility, the importance of ethical business practices, and the power of individual action in the face of systemic corruption. As the legal proceedings began, Olivia braced herself for long days in court. She would be a key witness in multiple trials, her testimony crucial to securing convictions. The night before the first trial was set to begin, Olivia found herself unable to sleep. She paced her apartment, her mind racing with all that had happened and all that was still to come. A soft knock at her door startled her out of her thoughts. She opened it to find Ethan standing there, looking as sleepless as she felt. "Ethan," she breathed, surprised. "What are you doing here?" He offered a weak smile. "I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about tomorrow, about everything that's happened. Olivia, I needed to see you." She hesitated for a moment before stepping aside to let him in. As they settled onto her small couch, an awkward silence fell between them. "I'm testifying tomorrow," Ethan finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Against my parents, against Melissa, against everyone." Olivia reached out, taking his hand in hers. "That takes a lot of courage, Ethan." He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. "Courage? I was a coward, Olivia. I knew what was happening for so long, and I did nothing. If it hadn't been for you." "You made mistakes," Olivia agreed softly. "But in the end, you did the right thing. That's what matters." Ethan looked at her, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "How can you still have faith in me, after everything?" Olivia thought for a moment, searching for the right words. "Because I've seen your heart, Ethan. I've seen the person you really are, beneath all the mistakes and the fear. That person is worth believing in." As the night wore on, they really talked, for the first time in weeks. About their fears for the trials ahead, about the weight of responsibility they both felt, about the uncertain future that lay before them. When dawn broke, they were still talking, a newfound understanding blossoming between them. The trials that followed were grueling. Day after day, Olivia took the stand, recounting her experiences with unwavering clarity. She faced aggressive cross-examinations from high-powered defense attorneys, but she never faltered. Ethan, true to his word, testified against his parents and their associates. Olivia watched from the gallery as he detailed years of fraud and deception, his voice shaking but determined. As the weeks turned into months, the verdicts began to come in. One by one, the architects of the massive fraud scheme were found guilty. Richard and Victoria Blackwood, Maxwell Thornton, Melissa Hartley, all were sentenced to significant prison terms. The day the final verdict was read, Olivia sat in the courtroom, hardly daring to breathe. As the judge pronounced the word guilty, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It was over. Justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by a sea of reporters, Olivia found herself standing beside Ethan. As cameras flashed and questions were shouted, he reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. In that moment, with the warm spring sun on her face and Ethan's hand in hers, Olivia felt a sense of peace wash over her. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more sure of herself than ever before. In the months that followed, Olivia threw herself into her work with renewed passion. The FBI, impressed by her performance throughout the investigation and trials, offered her a permanent position as a civilian consultant. She specialized in cases involving white-collar crime and corruption, her unique perspective and keen insight proving invaluable time and time again. Olivia found a deep sense of fulfillment in her new role, knowing that she was making a real difference in the world. Ethan, seeking to make amends for his family's misdeeds, established a new charitable foundation. Unlike the fraudulent Blackwood Foundation, this one operated with complete transparency. Its mission focused on supporting the communities and organizations that had been hurt by his parents' actions. As Olivia and Ethan worked to rebuild what had been broken, their relationship deepened. They found in each other not just romantic partners, but true allies in their shared mission to create positive change. One crisp autumn evening, as they walked hand in hand through Central Park, Ethan suddenly stopped, turning to face Olivia. "Do you remember the first time we really talked?" he asked, a soft smile playing on his lips. "It was at one of my parents' charity galas. You were refilling champagne glasses, and I pulled you aside to ask for help." Olivia nodded, the memory clear in her mind. "You said you thought someone in your family was involved in something illegal. You had no idea how right you were." Ethan's smile turned rueful. "I was so lost then, so scared. But you gave me hope, Olivia. You made me believe that doing the right thing was possible, even when it seemed impossible." He took both of her hands in his gaze intense. "You changed my life, Olivia. You changed me. And I love you for it." Olivia felt her heart swell, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "I love you too, Ethan," she whispered. As they stood there, the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Olivia marveled at the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a simple maid, overlooked and underestimated, to a key player in one of the biggest fraud cases in New York history, to a woman deeply in love and dedicated to making the world a better place. Life had thrown her countless curveballs, but she had faced each one with courage, integrity, and an unwavering belief in justice. And now, standing in the fading light with the man she loved, Olivia knew that the best was yet to come. Epilogue. 5 years later, Olivia stood at a podium, addressing a packed auditorium. Her book, From Maid to Crime Fighter, One Woman's Journey to Justice, had just hit the bestseller list, and she was in high demand as a speaker on corporate ethics and social responsibility. "When I was wrongly accused of theft all those years ago," she began, her voice strong and clear, "I never could have imagined where that moment would lead me. But looking back, I realized that it was a turning point, not just in my life, but in the lives of so many others." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the rapt audience. Each of us has the power to affect change, to stand up for what's right, even when it seems like the whole world is against us. It's not always easy. In fact, it's often terrifying. But it's in those moments of fear and doubt that we discover our true strength. In the front row, Ethan sat watching her with pride, their young daughter perched on his lap. Beside him were Agent Thompson, now a close friend, and Amelia Blackwood, who had found her own path to redemption by becoming an advocate for ethical business practices. "The journey from that false accusation to where I stand today was long and often painful," Olivia continued. "But it taught me something invaluable, that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, will always find its way to the light. And when it does, it has the power to transform lives, to right wrongs, and to create a better world for all of us." As applause filled the auditorium, Olivia felt a sense of deep contentment wash over her. She had come so far from the young woman who had once felt invisible, powerless in the face of injustice. Now, she stood as a beacon of hope and integrity, living proof that one person, armed with nothing but truth and determination, could indeed change the world. Later that evening, as Olivia tucked her daughter into bed, the little girl looked up at her with wide, curious eyes. "Mommy," she asked, "tell me again about the time you were a maid." Olivia smiled, settling onto the edge of the bed. "Well, sweetheart, it all began with a false accusation." As she recounted her story once more, Olivia was struck by how much it still moved her. The fear, the uncertainty, the moments of triumph, they were all still vivid in her mind. But now, they were tempered by the wisdom of experience and the joy of the life she had built. When she finished, her daughter was nearly asleep, but she mustered the energy for one more question. "Mommy, are you glad all that happened to you?" Olivia paused, considering the question carefully. "You know," she said softly, "in a way, I am. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I wanted to give up. But everything that happened led me to where I am now, to your daddy, to you, to all the good we've been able to do. So yes, I'm glad. Because it taught me that no matter who you are or where you come from, you have the power to make a difference." As she turned out the light and quietly left the room, Olivia found Ethan waiting for her in the hallway. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "Another successful retelling of the great Olivia Martinez saga?" he teased gently. Olivia laughed, leaning into his embrace. "You know, every time I tell it, I'm reminded of how lucky we are. Not just because of where we ended up, but because of everything we went through to get here." Ethan nodded, his expression growing serious. "We've come a long way from that charity gala, haven't we?" "We certainly have," Olivia agreed. "But you know what? I wouldn't change a thing." As they stood there in the quiet of their home, surrounded by the life they had built together, Olivia felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the challenges that had shaped her, for the love that had sustained her, and for the opportunity to use her experiences to create positive change in the world. The journey from maid to crime fighter had been an extraordinary one, full of twists and turns she never could have anticipated. But standing here now, Olivia knew that it had all been worth it. She had found her true calling, her true love, and her true self. And as she looked to the future, Olivia Martinez, once a simple maid, now an author, activist, and inspiration to many, knew that the best was still to come. For her family, and for all those whose lives she would touch with her story of courage, perseverance, and the unwavering pursuit of justice.